Tiffany with the Rancher's Homestead, and welcome back. Well, the holidays are fast approaching. They're going to be here before we know it. And I have a couple weeks worth of good stuff in store for you to get you prepared. If you are gluten-free, then you are going to know that you need a good gluten-free pie crust for this holiday season. With all the goodies that come out, it's so hard to be someone that can't have the delicious pie in front of you. But that is not going to happen to you this year because I have a very delicious pie crust that you can use for any pie. Set it on the table and no one's going to know the difference. It's so good. I will say this though. You are going to want to use, in my opinion, cup for cup, which is the gluten-free all-purpose flour that I use in most all of my recipes. You can try it with other flours out there. I've tried a lot of different ones. I always seem to go back to cup for cup because it just is what its name is. It transfers from recipe to recipe, cup for cup. So you just do the exact same amount that you would in an all-purpose flour in a normal recipe. Use that exact amount with cup for cup, and it always turns out great. With the exception of breads, of course. So I highly recommend using cup for cup in this recipe. That's what I'm gonna use, but you can experiment with other gluten-free flours if you wish. Okay, so what I have in this bowl is 3 3/4 cup of cup for cup. Okay, so that is a lot of flour, gluten-free flour in here. But this is gonna make 3 pie crusts. And the reason that I do the full recipe, you can half it. So if you want to half this recipe, you'll get about 2 smaller pie crusts or one really big one with a little bit left over. But the reason why I like to get all of the pie crusts and do the full recipe and get 3 is because I freeze them. So I'll use whatever I need. So if I'm making a pumpkin pie, I'm only going to use one of them because I don't need a topper. If I'm making an apple pie, I'm going to use 2 of them, but then I'll freeze the 3rd one. So then on a whim, when you can pull it out, defrost it really quickly, and you can have a pie really fast. So I always make the full amount and freeze whatever I'm not going to use. Okay, so in this bowl, I have 3 3/4 cup of gluten-free all-purpose flour, which I use cup for cup. I have a tablespoon of sugar in here, and now I'm gonna add my other dry ingredients to it. So I'm gonna do a 1/2 tablespoon of salt, and this is my really good Himalayan pink salt that I get on Azure Standard. We love buying a really good salt to bake and cook with. And then I am going to put in a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And all I'm gonna do is just give this a little stir here, just to mix it all in. Now, you're gonna use a lot of butter, but again, this is making 3 pie crusts. So you're gonna use 1 cup, so 2 full sticks, 2 full sticks, which is a 1/2 cup, so 1 cup of butter, and then about 6 tablespoons on the other additional. And this is really cold butter. I just took it out of my refrigerator, and I just kind of slice it a little bit with a butter knife here. It doesn't need to be anything perfect, but you want it to be nice and cold. You don't want it to be room temperature by no means. So I just pulled it out before I started filming this video. And I'm gonna go ahead and slice all of this up so that it's easier to work into your pie crust. And this is where it gets kind of messy when you are cutting your butter into your flour mixture, which is the start of your dough. Okay. It's super hard, which is a good thing. That's what we're looking for. And okay, now I'm just gonna use this pastry cutter and I'm going to get it all worked in until you have about little pea sizes of flour and butter. Oops. And this is where I get messy. And so you're just gonna keep working through it. Sometimes I have to take it out and work the butter back through, and you're gonna get all of it worked in. Now, if you don't have one of these pastry cutters, for years, I did it with 2 butter knives, and you can do that. It is a little bit more work, and I would say it probably doesn't cut the butter in as well as one of these, and they're not very expensive to get one of these. I bought mine on Amazon, which I will link in my storefront, but you can definitely use 2 butter knives, and I did that for years until one day I was making pie crust, and I thought, why am I not buying the $7 tool that makes this easier? So I did, and I'm very happy I did. Okay, so you're gonna just keep going and working it through until all of it is worked into your flour. Let's see, and that looks about good. You're gonna have chunky flour butter pieces, and that's exactly where you want to be. Now you don't want super, super big chunks, so you're gonna keep working it until they're like little pea sizes. All right, I think that's about good. Now I'm gonna add my wet ingredients into this. So in this bowl here, I have 2/3 cup of ice water. So I'm gonna pull the ice out and throw it in my sink, and I'm gonna dump this in. Now you want your water, just like your butter, to be very cold. So that's why you wanna, I always fill my cup, put the ice in, mix this up, and then I pull the ice out. You might get a little bit more than 2/3 of a cup, but not a ton, and that's okay. Now I'm gonna put in 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, and this is my homemade ones from my apple scraps of doing different apple pie fillings and different things. And then here's the secret ingredient that's gonna make your gluten-free pie crust flaky and just like a normal pie crust. And that is 2 tablespoons of either sour cream, or this is my homemade yogurt, plain yogurt. And you're gonna put 2 tablespoons in it. That's the secret ingredient that you want to make your gluten-free pie crust be really, really good, and like nobody can tell the difference. Okay, now you're just gonna mix this all in. And you're gonna start with your spoon, do what you can, and then you just have to work it in with your hands. So it is kind of a messy job, but it's so worth it to have a nice homemade pie. Okay, so I did all I can with my spoon. And now I'll just keep working this in with my hands until all of the flour is incorporated. Okay, so I got it all worked in with my hands, and it's a nice ball of dough. Now, I'm gonna make an apple pie tonight for just a dessert. And if you haven't already watched it, jump back a couple videos to my homemade canned apple pie filling. So I have jars and jars of it on my canning shelf. I'm gonna pull a jar of that out, or 2, and fill my pie crust with it and have a homemade apple pie tonight for dessert. So I'm gonna use 2 of these. The third one I'm gonna stick in the freezer in a Ziploc bag. Make sure to label it gluten-free, especially if you make other pie crusts that are not. And then I will have an extra dough for another night if I wanted to make something really quickly. So it's really quite simple. Since I'm gonna make some of this today, I'm gonna go ahead and just stick it in the fridge until I'm ready to use it this afternoon when I make the apple pie. If I was going to just make this to freeze, I would, at this point, chop it into 3 even pie crust pieces, put those into a ball, stick them into Ziploc bags, and stick that in the freezer. It's really simple, and I promise you, you will have your crowd pleased on Thanksgiving or Christmas or any other event that you bring a pie to. They won't even know it's gluten-free. If you don't need to be gluten-free, you can use this exact same recipe and just use all-purpose flour in it, and it'll be just as good. So both options for you, and go make yourself a delicious homemade pie for the holidays. Take care.